welcome to Spacevidcast 4.21 for, well, it's the first show in 2012. It's January 15th. New date and time for the live shows. So in my brain, I was already starting to go forward one day.
You know what? I'm actually surprised that you got the show number right. Mm-hmm. You got the month right. You got the day right. And the year.
And the year, which I don't normally do.
You're not my husband.
I know something's weird is going on. It's almost like we're somewhere else. Yeah, we've moved, and we're in California now. The show will be pretty much the same until we start the 500 series shows, which will happen on our 5th anniversary sometime in March.
And you can tell we're in California because we're so tan.
Yeah, right. And yeah, I guess with the new year, it's worth kind of taking a look back. We've got our live chat room. We've got a bunch of new people joining us in the live chat room, and I just wanted to welcome everyone.
And I also just want to say really quickly, a bunch of these people aren't necessarily new people, but they're new to the live show.
There you go.
They are names that I recognize from all over the place, whether it be YouTube or just making comments on spacevidcast.com or even helping out on our wiki.
Sure.
A bunch of names from all over the place, but now all in one convenient place.
Bing! And I'd like to remind the live chat room to participate during the entire show because we wouldn't be here without you. Otherwise, it'd just be an on-demand show. So let's get started with I didn't do the commercial update.
Oh, well.
We're going to do that thing that I wasn't sure we should do.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about 2011 in review and what kind of happened in space in 2011. If you remember,
Nothing.
Nothing. I started off 2011 by saying that was going to be tipping point years for us. And when we go forward 50 years in the future, when we look back, we look at kind of these the years we're in right now, 2010, 11, 12, and maybe even 2013 as the point where humanity changed.
Yes.
We started to actually reach for the stars. And
it's the end of the world.
2012 is the end.
So obviously we're going to look back on this and go, man, everything changed then, didn't it?
No, it's 1224. I don't remember.
21.
12, 21, 20, whatever it is.
Anyway.
And I think we saw a lot of that in 2011. The first big event that happened was the space shuttle actually did IRL retire. For realsies this time.
For realsies this time, right. For those of you who have the old T-shirts and or patches that say that it ended in 2010, good for you, because those are now collector's items.
Kinda.
As it did actually retire in 2011.
The worst part is I was reviewing the comments on our YouTube channel, and some people like to go back and watch old launches. For example, STS-132, which was the final launch of Atlantis. And at the time that we posted it, it was the final launch of Atlantis. But it wasn't actually the final launch of Atlantis. STS-135 was. And so now people go back and look at our archive video and they're like, you idiots. There was still another launch. And I'm like,
sweetie, they think we're idiots anyway. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So the space shuttle, poof, it's gone. We get one here in California, actually. We're going to get
so excited.
Right? We get space shuttle Endeavour.
Which did land here one time before, if you do remember the movie The Core.
Right. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Then Space Shuttle Atlantis is going to Kennedy Space Center, and I'm excited. If you've seen our live shows, we've talked about that in the past. They've got these beautiful mock-ups of what they're going to do to Atlantis. It's a very good tribute to Atlantis. And then Space Shuttle Discovery goes to Smithsonian.
Yep.
It replaces Space Shuttle Enterprise. I was like, Endeavour. No. They currently have Enterprise, which was the drop test unit that they had. It was originally going to become a flight vehicle, but then they're like, and they made Columbia instead. So, and then Enterprise is going to New York, and New York doesn't want Enterprise because it's not a real shuttle, even though it's probably the most real shuttle out of all of them. So there you go.
Yes.
So that's what's happening with the space shuttles, and we can start to see, I believe the later half of 2012 is when we're actually going to start to see the space shuttles move to their museums when they're supposed to, right? When are we supposed to get ours?
Honestly, I don't know. I think they're still prettying her up. Atlantis, KSC wanted Atlantis kind of down and dirty, like exactly the way she was. Obviously with harsh chemicals and anything hazardous taken out and all that other fun stuff. Yep. But I think California was like, oh, no, we get the pretty one. So I think they still need a little bit of makeup on her, and then she'll come on over.
Oh no, Discovery was the diva.
Discovery was the diva, which is apropos that New York doesn't want her.
No, wait. Was it Discovery or Endeavour that was a diva?
No, wasn't it Discovery? Discovery was
Chat room, help me
I'm
out.
not leaving. I don't know what you're talking about.
Was it Discovery? I don't remember which one it was. It was one of them, though, that was...
STS-132. Discovery.
No, 132 was Atlantis.
133, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
33 Discovery.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, fine. I'll accept it.
I know my girls.
I've lost my chat room.
What up? The really funny thing is that since we've been out here, of course, we've met a whole lot of new people, whether it be through SpaceX or other space friends, including people who we've known forever, like in the chat room, but maybe not have met IRL. So we've had a chance to do some of that. And there are some people, one person in particular, who happens to share many passions that I also share, being space, Disney, and wrestling. And so we had to get together with them because I just had to know. And so, hi, Chantal. Anyway, so we got together with them, and I believe her husband's name is Eric, and I apologize if I got this wrong, but I'm Duda, has decided he is going to walk the entire path that Endeavour will take from LAX to its final resting point. And I forget exactly where it's going to be.
That's a little ways, though. That's not a small...
Yeah, no, it's a few miles. Like, we're not talking like a quick little jaunt. Like, if you were in the taxi, it'd be like a $30 fare.
But it's less than a marathon, right?
It's less than a marathon. And granted, it's going to be going like, 0.34 miles per hour, so it's not like he's going to be running.
We totally need to have live coverage of that from like a cell phone or something, just
Right.
walking next to
Right, but
Endeavour.
at the same time, I'm like, you're not really going to... He's like, oh, no, I'm walking. I'm walking with Endeavour. Like, that's my girl. That's what I'm doing. And I was like, all right, you go. So that's awesome. Should be a lot of fun.
So one of the things they're doing is they've ripped the space shuttle main engines out of the space shuttles. That's redundant. And they're shipping them off to, I believe it's Stennis, if I remember right. And they're going to be reused in the Space Launch System. And that's another thing that happened in 2011.
Have you seen that picture?
Which picture?
There's a picture of all of the SSMEs,
Yes.
Space Shuttle Main Engines, all sort of lined up, and they look like Daleks.
Oh, I'm going to find that really quick.
They sort of... Well, I can find it. You can keep talking.
Well, no, if you find it, we can't air it.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, they're all sort of set up, and they look like Dalek containers. It's actually really funny.
Exterminate.
Whoa, Jeffrey, you're right. They do look like coffee tables to me. Beautiful, beautiful coffee tables.
Go back to season 1 for that particular reference.
Actually, don't go back. I made the very large mistake. For those of you who have been with us for a while, I apologize for the repeat in the story, but when we started this podcast almost 5 years ago, I knew absolutely nothing of space in any way, shape, or form. And I made the mistake of saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have an SSME as a coffee table? Without really realizing the ginormity of these things. Let's just say that.
This is the picture you're
Yes,
taking
exactly. But now that we are in California and we can go and visit Disney's California, Disney California Adventure, is that the name of the park?
Yep.
There is a particular cafe called the Taste Pilot Grill. And in the back, they have a decommissioned SSME in this huge, like, kind of gated off area. But sure enough, I stand next to it and I look like I'm probably about 1.5 years old. Anyway, so yeah, there's the picture of them all lined up.
That was real-time internetery that just happened right there.
But isn't that cool? They kind of look like, don't they look like Dalek, like they're in containers, like they're just going to break right out of there?
I will admit, they look a little Dalek-y.
Exterminate.
You know what? And now we know. This is where the Daleks first started.
Yes! The silly English, they're always just so jealous of us.
Oh, man. So they ripped those out. They've begun transporting those. Those are going to be used in the new Space Launch System. Now, SLS, in 2010, we canceled Constellation. Woot. And,
with good reason.
Well, but we decided that we really did want our own space program. And so in 2011, not space program, but rocket, we always had a space program. We wanted our own rocket, so in 2011 the Space Launch System was announced. It is basically, the easiest way to reference this is it's an Ares 5, which is the old Constellation stuff, and then they gave it a new paint job. So instead of like kind of looking like the space shuttle with the orange, it looks a little bit more like a Saturn V.
Yes.
It's designed to bring insane, crazy payloads to space, and you need insane. Well, I think, what is it, 70 metric tons? How much is it, guys? I mean, it's like, we're talking Saturn V kind of levels.
Badger Legs says stupendous launch system.
stupendous launch system.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
So that was announced. That's currently a paper rocket. We're not going to see it before, I want to say it was 2017. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I could have the date wrong, but it's going to be a little while before we see anything. It does take a while to design these. A rocket of this caliber takes some time. Now, one could make the argument that, well, we did it in under 10 years with the Apollo program, with Saturn V, but the funding levels and the political will was a little bit different at that time. And so now that we don't have that level of funding, it just takes longer because you have to spread out the money and the time and the resources over, it's still going to take that much resources, it just takes longer now. So there you go. So that was also launched announced in 2011. One other thing that launched in 2011, at the very, very end of 2011.
Yes.
Curiosity.
Just barely squeaked by.
Barely made it in. Curiosity. That is the epic rover of epicness that is on its way to Mars right now. This is one of the most daring missions I think NASA has ever done. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. This is the size of a Beetle, a VW Beetle, mm-hmm. right? So it's the largest rover. I don't even know where to look it up right now, so I'm not going to. But there are side-by-side pictures of the rovers that we've already sent to Mars and Curiosity. Curiosity is like 4 times larger than anything else we've ever sent there.
Right, so there's Curiosity, and then you see the other rovers, and it looks like the luggage you put into the boot of Curiosity.
Kind of. You can fit the other rovers all of them into Curiosity.
Pretty much. It's a little disturbing.
But because it's so large and heavy, they had to come up with creative ways of bringing it down to the planet. And so that's where the sky crane system comes in. And what they're going to do...
How can you say sky crane? That's what it's called.
It requires air quotes because it's scary. So the sky crane's going to come in. It's going to be all self-contained for a bit. It's going to kind of slow itself down. So it's going to fire its rockets to slow itself down. It's going to blow off the bottom, lower the actual Curiosity rover down on a crane system until it basically touches the ground. Then it's going to release the cables, and then the sky crane itself is going to fly away so it doesn't land on Curiosity, or the parts don't get
Wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, not awesome. Don't get me wrong.
Everything works, and then the crane goes thunk right on top of the rover.
I'm sorry. That was terrible. That's not what I mean. I didn't mean it like that.
So this is actually a very exciting mission. I'm looking forward to this. We covered the Phoenix lander, which was not a rover, it was a lander. Just kind of went plop and stayed in the same position. And that was what they call 7 minutes of terror.
Yes.
Due to the delay or the entry, descent, landing that the rover went through, and then the delay, because it takes, depending upon where Mars is, it takes over 7 minutes for the signal to come back. So by the time the rover or the lander has made it onto the surface of the planet, we're just starting to get the signals that's saying, I'm about to land. I'm about to enter the atmosphere. That's how long it takes, which is awesome. So that's going to be a nail biter while we're all sitting there waiting for the data to come back, and it's hyper nerdy. It's definitely Big Bang Theory-esque, right? Because it's a bunch of people that are going to be sitting behind a console who are going to be just kind of doing this, and we're going to have a single camera looking at them, and we're all going to be like, "What's it doing? What's it doing? Did it land? Did it land? Did it go? Did it go? Did it go? What's it doing? What is it doing?" Right?
Another at least 7 minutes of terror.
Kind of. So that launched in 2011. Virgin Galactic finally started doing some tests of Spaceship Two. Mm-hmm. No actual engine fires on the vehicle itself mm-hmm. while doing drop tests yet, but they've started dropping it from White Knight 2 and getting some test data back and making sure that it flies and will be as safe as they want it to be. There's a big debate as to when they're actually going to start to do rocket tests. I maintain, as I have for a while, that it will be 2012.
Okay.
Of course, I maintained it would be 2011 at the beginning of 2011, but
so
I now maintain that it will be 2012. People I talk to say I'm crazy. There's no possible way it will make 2012. But I think that Virgin Galactic will send humans into space in 2012. Maybe not paying customers, but some test pilots I think are going to make it in 2012. You? What do you think?
I stand by my man.
Does that really mean that you don't actually have an opinion
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Just checking.
How's that? That and, if one of us goes down, at least we both go down together. I don't want to be like, you're full of crap. And then what if it does, you know what I mean?
All of the Spacevidcast hosts seem to think.
Yes, 100%. That's the most diplomatic thing.
So Helpdesk says they'll start powered test flights this year, but I doubt they'll have a full flight this year. Whether they have I guess a full flight being defined as crossing the boundary of space. The Virgin Galactic vehicles barely make it into the accepted border of what we consider space, right? They just have enough power for that. So, if they're going to fire the rocket, obviously they'll do it in steps, but I don't think it would be too many steps. I think it would follow the Spaceship One profile pretty closely, and I think it would be I thought it was only like 3 or 4 before they actually got high enough to go into space. It wasn't very many.
No, they seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah. So let's see here. And finally, is this finally? Yeah, Virgin Galactic SLS MSL. Oh yeah, finally, Russia.
Oh, Russia.
Well, I feel bad for them because you never want stuff to go wrong. But so what happened in 2011 was basically Russia has vehicles that they were designed back in the Soviet era.
Right.
These have been extremely reliable vehicles. They've been absolutely fantastic until the end of 2011. It all happened right back to back to back to back.
Right, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing.
Kind of.
Except that maybe every once in a while, everything needs a little bit of a facelift or a once over.
But they did. This was all. Most of the stuff that failed was kind of like stuff that they had tweaked and made newer. Mm-hmm. So it was actually the newer stuff that was failing, and they did. They had a bunch of upper stage failures. I want to say it was a total of 6 failures. Not all upper stages, but a couple upper stage failures. They had a spacecraft failure. They just did not have a happy December, is what it really comes down to. There are a lot of miffed people. And we'll talk about that a little bit more after the break. But yeah, Russia didn't do so well in the end of 2011. So here's hoping that they make a very good recovery for 2012, because there are ticket to the International Space Station for the foreseeable future. So yeah, there you go. So that's anything that chat room. Did I miss anything for 2011? Badgerleg says it was. Before we go to break, there was something that was mentioned. I want to say it was the head of Roscosmos. I don't remember who said it, so maybe the chat room can remind me. But basically said there was a possibility that these failures were all sabotage, because most of them happened when they weren't able to see the vehicles, and they happened on the other side, and you could certainly send commands to sabotage the vehicles. Time will tell, but no, right? You'll
That
look.
was very Maston of you. Did you see yourself do
No.
that? That was very Dave of you. Just no.
Well, and no, because before this happened, they openly admitted they had issues with the phobos-grunt mission, and that some of the tech wasn't ready. They already came to determine that the problem with some of these upper stages was clogged fuel lines. That's not something you don't send a command to the spacecraft and say clog the fuel line now. Although cool if you could. So no, it really does sound like when you listen to the answers as to why each individual mission failed, it was a failure on Roscosmos' part, and I think they're just kind of stretching because they had so many failures back to back to back that they're like, this looks weird. And I think it's just a culture problem. I think my opinion is that too many of the engineers have retired, and they just haven't gotten up to speed on the way things really do need to go.
One thing the chat room was mentioning was Grail.
Grail, yeah. Oh, there were a lot of missions that launched.
And Juno.
Juno was another really cool one.
Juno was awesome.
Juno looks like it's wrapped in duct tape. If you've ever seen it, because of the I don't remember.
They don't
why.
have the gold reflector stuff. They have the
it's
sort
like
of gray,
duct tape looking gray stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, it was because the gold stuff would have too much electrostatic. activity on the surface, so they had to dumb it down with the gray for that particular one because of its mission profile.
How different.
So,
it's kind of cool.
there was a question by BZ Wing Zero asking if SpaceX launched at all in 2011. The answer is no. There were no launches. The last launch SpaceX had was Falcon 9 Flight 2, which was at the end of 2010.
But there's been a bunch of tests, a lot of stuff going on down in
course,
Texas.
sure.
They always seem to be busy. So
there you go.
Good stuff going on.
That was our really high-level overview of 2011 in review. So when we come back, we've got, this is going to be interesting.
Do you want to explain this? I think you should do a little explanation.
All right, so there's
bit.
before we go to the commercial, I'm going to air a trailer for a self-funded movie. And this is it's called Iron Sky. And this is one of those, we're not going to go out and get a big production budget. It's kind of like a Kickstarter project. The premise, I was kind of going back and forth as to whether I should show this because the premise...
Slightly controversial, but still very
I don't
interesting.
say it's controversial, it's just that it's well, a little bit. All right. The premise is that in 1945, the Nazis launched to the dark side of the moon, set up a colony, and they've been there ever since. And in 2018, I want to think it says in the preview, they're going to come back. So they were actually the first ones to the moon, and that's the premise.
I figure they survive because they have cold-blooded hearts. So they can survive on the cold side of the moon just fine.
Yeah, something. So that's the premise of this. I thought it looked like a really interesting show. You can see more at ironsky.com. But here's our commercial break, the launch schedule for the week, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some stuff that's happening in 2012.
Yay.
Time goes by, memories are mine, still waiting for the moment that I see you again. Times are changing, memories are fading. I'm waiting for another chance to tell you belong to me.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving through the heat, keeps on
yeah, that was the trailer. You put your hair up?
It's been up the whole
Did I just now notice
time.
that? Typical guy. Yeah, that was the trailer. As the chat room mentioned during the break, they actually have it funded, and the movie's pretty much done. So for more, and I chose the first trailer because I like the first trailer the most. There are 2 other trailers on the website, and there's a bunch of other really cool information. So I think it looks interesting and fun and kind of nerdy. So that's why I put it in there. There you have it. Well, we were talking a little bit about some of Russia's failures before we went into break, and earlier today, Sunday, the phobos-grunt mission, or phobos-ground, which was a Russian mission to go to Mars. It was going to land on, oh man, I don't even remember. It was going to land on Enceladus? It doesn't matter. All my attention now has been focused on the fact that the vehicle failed. It got stuck in Earth orbit, and the vehicle itself never burnt its its engines to go to Mars. So today was the day. You know, I do feel kind of done because the chat room just corrected me, and they said, yeah, no, it was going to Phobos. Of course it was going to Phobos. Enceladus, I don't know where that came from. So here's a recent picture of the vehicle as it's starting to come back in. This is, I want to say it's actually about a day old or so, but you can kind of sort of see a little bit of the bottom of the vehicle at the round part of the screen at the bottom. And yeah, so that's what's left of Phobos ground. It is actually, it has re-entered it has or is, as we speak, re-entering the atmosphere, and that's the end of it. And it's fully fueled. I know, tear, right? It's fully fueled, which means the hazardous fuels on board, such as the hydrazine, are coming down with the vehicle, which is why when you find space debris, especially a vehicle like that, you don't necessarily want to touch it and stick it in your mouth. I don't know who would want to do that, but that's not something you want to do. It should land in the ocean, the South Pacific Ocean, and yeah, that's the sad part there.
Sad.
I know, right? And that was
Has a sad.
that was pretty much today. That happened
Yeah.
about it happened about an hour before we went live, 1 hour maybe 2. But speaking of going to Mars, the first major burn for Curiosity has actually occurred, and this means that Curiosity can now go to. It's on its way to Mars. It's going to perform several different burns, but this particular burn was the big bad one. Actually, you know what? I think I have a thingy. Here you go. I got a neat little video that describes what happened.
Okay, I was
but
like,
this,
you have a big bad bird?
No. This was the biggest burn of all of them. So there were several little burns, but this was the first big one, and this was the biggest burn of all of them. And so here you go.
TCM is a trajectory correction maneuver. It's something we do to change the direction the spacecraft is moving through space. We're not aiming for Mars. We're aiming for Mars, the point where Mars will be in its orbit on August 5th, so that Mars will be there when we get there. We do about 4 or 5 of these as we get close to Mars, and this is just the first and the biggest of all of them. We break these TCMs into 2 pieces. One is an axial component where we fire the rockets in the direction of the solar panels. The other part, which we're doing right now, is called the lateral component, which is where we actually fire our rockets going in sideways, and the spaceship pushes itself laterally, and that happens as it rotates. It fires its thrusters, poof, and it comes back around. It puffs again using the thrusters again as it rotates. So it actually allows us to move sideways. In this particular case, we're doing about a 5 meter per second change in speed of the vehicle, so we can change. So by the time it gets to Mars, it'll be in the right spot. Everything looks good. It's doing its job fine, perfectly. It's doing everything we needed to do. It's measuring the temperature. It's controlling the thermal conditions of the vehicle. The computer's working fine. Everything is working just as we expect. Its whole job is basically to get us to Mars so we can land this rover.
So that's a little bit about what happened with the
People
Mars.
were working.
Mars
Come
Caravan.
on.
And then
Stop.
as we look at hole number 9.
Guys are so mean.
Well, right? That's what it was. I mean, we can't speak up because people are behind.
People are working.
I know, it's still funny.
So mean.
Well, that was good, but, you know, that's what I do. So yeah, that's Curiosity's latest status. So the thing with Curiosity, as we mentioned earlier, is I have the riskiest part of this particular mission, in my opinion, will be the entry, descent, landing sequence, or EDL, which is where that's the sky crane system we were talking about. Hoofta poofta loofta doofta. If I may bring some Minnesotan back with me to California. Oh man, that's going to be fun. So other vehicles that we've been working on, or are working on for 2012, and one is the Orion vehicle. And on January 6th, 2012, they did the last splash. Oh, hey, I have video of this too. Here we go.
Ooh.
Check this out. This is the last splash test that they're doing for the Orion. This is an Orion drop. Basically, they're going to drop it into the water. This is one of the more harsh entry conditions that they can do, and they're testing one of the backup positions. They're trying to test it. Basically, they want to flip it upside down. So here you go. Check this out. This is kind of fun.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release.
Dude.
I like how the people were like, yes, ma'am. Like, that's how you do it. It's like the most hick I've ever heard NASA. Darn tootin', that's how you drop one of them things right there. It's like, right? Come on, there's like one person in the background who goes, yes, ma'am.
So the chat room is asking, was it meant to flip over? The answer is yeah. They were trying to test one of the worst case scenarios. So it's very unlikely that Orion will actually land this way. But they need to test for it anyhow. They want to make sure that it
Right.
can.
God forbid the thing comes down and the next thing you know, it cracks open because it hit at just a crazy angle or whatever it was, and then you lose everything.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the answer is yes. Yes, it was designed it did what it was supposed to in that particular image.
It was supposed to flippy floppy.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Orion is the next generation spacecraft. And it looks a lot like an old Apollo spacecraft because, frankly, that's a very efficient design for space. But what it will be able to do is get us past low Earth orbit. Right now, for however long we've been doing this, 30 plus years now, I guess, we've been stuck in low Earth orbit. We've been unable to leave, mostly because of the space shuttle. The space shuttle could not leave low Earth orbit, which is mostly true. Well, actually, if I may diverge, there was a study.
If I may,
There actually was a study. I'll have to look it up and throw it in the wiki.
Yeah.
That talked about refueling the space shuttle in space and having it go to the moon. And they said, yeah, technically you can do it. It's stupid. The study basically said, I don't know why you'd want to do it, but the math works. So, while yes, the space shuttle was limited to low Earth orbit, apparently, technically, it was capable of going to the moon. But it wasn't actually able to
just
land
like
on the
a
moon.
fat kid can run up, 6 flights of stairs. You can do it, but
That's a
by the time-
terrible analogy.
All right, so technically, I can run up 6 flights of stairs. Oh, it doesn't work when I stutter like that.
So, yeah.
But I don't want to.
Now, the shuttle itself wouldn't be able to land on the moon, so it would basically get there and fling back, and that was about it. So, again, they were like, what are you going to do? Yay! But anyhow, off topic, the Orion craft is designed to do deep space exploration. So if we wanted to go to Mars, this is a craft that NASA could use to go to Mars. If we wanted to go back to the moon, this is a craft that could do that. If we wanted to visit a near-Earth object, such as an asteroid,
Right.
this is the craft that would be able to do all of that. And so that's what they were testing. They got to test it here on Earth before we send it up into space. But then sometime moderately soon, we'll start doing some flight tests. Moderately soon, meaning not 2012. We'll start doing some... Well, space works on a
In the
different
scheme
timeline.
of things, yeah, no, that's moderately soon.
Space works on a very different timeline than, say, technology, right?
Right.
Technology, we're used to a new iPhone every year or a new computer every 6 months, and that's just not how space works. The vacuum of space is very, very difficult to work in, and there are not advancements that quickly
Right.
yet. Maybe someday. I mean, there might be a point in time when we when Moore's law kicks in for space, but not yet. And finally, ESA will actually, speaking of new launchers and new vehicles,
Yay.
ESA's Vega launcher will do its first test flight in 2012. So Vega, ESA, the European Space Agency, so it's like saying NASA but for Europe, has right now 2 rockets. They've got access to the Soyuz rocket, which is that Russian rocket, that's for medium lifts. They've got the Ariane 5 rocket, which is their heavy lift rocket, but they don't have a small rocket. The Vega, which is going to hopefully start doing its test flights this year, February 9th actually, so soon,
really soon.
this year, is their small lift rocket. And one of the unique things about the Vega is that it can carry multiple payloads to orbit.
Nice.
So most smaller rockets can't do that.
Right.
This one can. And so this will give ESA kind of a full range of launchers. So from small, medium, or large, they can launch any payload you want. Obviously, you get price. It helps you from a pricing standpoint,
Right.
depending upon what vehicle you need to launch. So that's going to be kind of cool when we get to watch a next generation vehicle launching from ESA's pads. I assume that's going to go from French Guiana, but I don't know that for sure.
What date did you say that was?
I want to say February 9th, I believe, is when it is actually launching.
Okay.
It's no earlier than February 9th, but you need to remember this is a experimental vehicle. When you're dealing with experimental vehicles, anything and everything can go wrong anywhere in the timeline. So
Right.
while that is a target date, that when it's an experimental vehicle, the chances of that date slipping are 99.99999%.
Right.
I would put no money on February 9th actually being the launch date, and that's no fault of them. That's just how any experimental vehicle is. I mean, you look at even outside of rockets, you look at the Boeing 787, the Dreamliner. That was years behind.
Yeah.
Right. So even cars get their release dates slipped back. So,
Right.
and this is way more complicated than any of that. Interesting if it does go February.
It is
9th.
interesting.
Yeah.
Is that something that we'll be able to see on NASA TV?
Well, you'll be able to see it on Spacevidcast live channel, hopefully.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Well, remember our live channel.
Well,
Obviously,
then.
our live channel's back because we're doing the live shows. We have been covering rocket launches, so that rocket launch graphic you saw in the break, you should be able to watch those live right here on Spacevidcast if you wanted to.
Hey, go us.
I know, right? That's the neat thing about Spacevidcast. One unified place where you can watch rocket launches. Easy
Or
for me to
watch
say.
them.
Hey, you have any predictions for 2012? What are we going to see now that we've just started the new year?
2012. Interesting. Oh, Badger Legs is asking about the SpaceX launch. I don't have any knowledge other than anything that they've said publicly.
SpaceX has announced a target date of Falcon 9 Flight 3 for no earlier than February 7th. And that mission is the COTS 2-3 combined mission to the International Space Station. COTS is the Crew Orbital Cargo.
You can do it.
No, I can't apparently because CCDEV is crew. It's basically NASA. I don't remember what the acronym stands for. It's Cargo Orbital Transportation System.
Well, anyway, with that particular date in mind, I wonder if...
Commercial Orbital Transportation Services. There we go. It's cargo. It's not crew. It's cargo only from commercial providers to the International Space Station. I'm having a really hard time.
Yeah,
with
you are. But when we're at Space Up San Diego, maybe we should reserve a pod hour, a pod time, just to watch the launch.
Ooh,
Right?
yeah.
So Space Up San Diego. If you're not going, you should. I know Tim's going because he's coming all the way over from Washington, D.C. to California to come to Space Up San Diego.
You want to talk about Space Up?
Sure. Space Up. Space is awesome. Well, it's my Space Up shirt. One of my many Space Up shirts. Space Up, in case you guys aren't familiar, which you should be, because if you watch the show, then you totally know what we're talking about. But in case you're not familiar, it's an unconference, which means a regular conference is you walk in, you get handed a book of papers talking about all the different speakers and all the different topics that they're going to be talking about. And if you're interested, you have a schedule for all the different areas that they will be speaking at one times, et cetera, et cetera. An unconference is exactly the opposite. You walk in, you get your name tag that you fill out yourself because that's awesome. And there's a huge blank board with rooms and times, and that's it. And so you go, I don't understand. What are we doing here? What are we going to be talking about? Well, what would you like to talk about? Every once in a while, we get, Ben Radcliffe, for instance, who's about 8 years old. He decided in this last Space Up LA, that he wanted to talk about, like, all right, we're on a trip to Pluto. What's the one thing you bring? Right? That's what he wanted to talk about.
Asparagus.
So we all got into the pod and we discussed the one thing that we had to bring with us. Just assume for a moment that everything else is taken care of. What's that one thing that you want to make sure that you have on your way to Pluto? Thank you, honey bunny.
Was that the right answer? That was the right answer, right?
Well, I said my flat iron. So anyway, but it's anything and everything. So if you want to talk about the, I was going to call it the Senate launch system, the
Space launch system.
yes, if you want to talk about the new space launch system,
the worst time with acronyms today,
we
right?
really are.
I can't believe I said phobos-grunt was going to Enceladus. That's just sad.
It should, though. Enceladus grunt. Anyway, whatever it is that you want to talk about, whatever moves you at the time, it doesn't have to be prepared. It can be prepared. You put it up there, you put it in a slot, and then hopefully people will come to your talk. And the best part is that if nobody comes to your talk, that means that you picked a terrible topic and you should just pick another one, or go to somebody else's talk that you also find interesting.
It doesn't mean you picked a terrible topic. It just means that,
Somebody else picked a better topic.
maybe.
That's pretty much what it is. Anyway, but that's an unconference, so it's really great. And every single one is a little bit different because it changes based on, who's in the area. Like the one in Houston was totally different than the one that was in LA, which was totally different than the one that was in DC, which is totally different than the one that's been in ones that have been in San Diego. So this is the very first Space Up that will be its third time round in San Diego, which we're really excited about. That's where the very first one was. And it's just a nice way to sort of kick off the year, get people coming down from San Francisco, down from LA. I don't know, it's a lot of fun. And if you want to start one in your area, it's very easy to do. Hit up spaceup.org. And there's a huge support system, and you can make your own.
Yeah, and Heather Not actually mentioned that in chat room, saying there should be one in Florida soon. And if there isn't one, then start one, right? There's all the tools necessary for you to start your own Space Up conference in your area. And it's a great way to get other people excited about human spaceflight. Or actually, I say human spaceflight, just space.
Space.
Get them excited about the cosmos again. Because there's something about when you get excited, it's infectious. Right? When your excitement for space tends to infect other people. And most people do enjoy space. Mm-hmm. But some, maybe they forgot.
Right.
And Space Up is a good way to rekindle that. Actually, I know a lot of people in the Spacevidcast chat room who found us through Space Up and just wanted to continue that kind of space awesome, geekery, chattery, I don't know what to call it.
But that.
Yeah, that. There you go.
I've heard rumblings of Space Ups in Florida, New York, Minnesota, Colorado. I know Houston's doing another one. LA's thinking about doing another one. San Francisco's thinking about doing their first. So yeah, it's really exciting. And there's one going to be close to you. And if there isn't one, make one.
And another thing that came out of Space Up was the LA Space Salon. We've got the first one up right now, which was with William Pomerantz from Virgin Galactic.
DJ Dr. P.
And he did a fantastic job talking about what would you like to see to elicit change in the next 5 years. That was kind of the topic. That's mostly the topic for all of them. It's different than a Space Up. It's not an unconference. It's a conversational conference, but it's not an unconference. There's a set topic. It's kind of locked down to a specific group. But you can watch his presentation right here on spacevidcast.com. And there's another one we're editing right now from X-Core, Doug, I think it was. I don't remember. Is that right? Was it Dave? Doug?
No, that's Doug. I'll have to look up his name now.
And that should be going up live soon. And then if you live in the LA area at the end of January 20-something, go to Facebook and search for Space Up LA. They've got another one. And they'll continue to do these month after month. And you can attend in person and actually participate. We don't stream these live just yet, but we do make them available on demand, so that's pretty cool. Back to the SpaceX question. So the COTS mission, the commercial orbital, whatever it was.
Yep.
So sending cargo to the International Space Station. The Dragon spacecraft, which is SpaceX's spaceship basically, will berth with the International Space Station itself. So they're going to grab the arm and berth it with the station. Awesome. They'll transfer cargo back and forth. They'll stay there for a little while, and then they'll return home. And that will be the first private company to berth with the International Space Station.
Awesome.
It is not docking with the International Space Station. It is berthing with the International Space Station.
Yeah, which is just a silly word all the way around.
No, there's a difference.
I know, but it's a silly word.
All right. So there you go. Oh, and Yuri's Night is actually coming up sometime soon.
Yes, like it does every year on the anniversary of the very first human in space, Mr. Yuri Gagarin.
Except that, are we doing it on a weekend this time?
Yes, I believe so, but the actual event anniversary, I suppose, is April 12th, from April 12th, 1961, when Yuri was, again, the first human, you know, ever to be in space. And why do we as a world, as a universe, want to celebrate that? Because it's a huge accomplishment. And I don't care if it was a man versus a woman, and I don't care if it was a Russian versus a Chinese guy, or an American or a Canadian or anything. That doesn't matter to me. We as humankind got off of this planet for the first time, and that's really just a remarkable accomplishment.
Not really. The space Nazis did it 15 years earlier.
Oh, right. Sorry, forgot about the Germans. Anyway,
Thanks, Zigger, for that one.
ignoring that, I'm going to celebrate the first official man, the first historically
Accurate?
accurate, acclaimed man off this planet. Oh, Zigger, you just, really. Anyway, but it's what we dub it as a world space party, and so it's for anyone and everyone who's interested in basically having a good time. There's a party near you for sure, and if there isn't, make one. Honestly, it's not that hard. We're pretty much just here to, as Yuri's Night, we're pretty much just here to promote, again, space and good times.
So,
rock your world.
What do you guys think is going to happen in 2012? We've got China. I haven't touched on China at all. So
Oh,
what do
right.
you think is going to happen?
China's moving.
Oh yeah, they're moving and shaking in the space industry right now. What do you think is going to happen to China? What do you think is going to happen maybe in the commercial satellite sector? What do you guys think? What about humans in space? What's going to happen to humans in space in 2012? Politically,
We're just going to stop.
well,
We're done.
Well, if Russia keeps having issues, what's going to happen there?
Yeah.
Politically, what's going to happen inside of the space arena? We'd love to hear. Leave your comments on spacevidcast.com, on our Blip channel, on our YouTube channel, wherever you'd like, and we'll talk about them here in the show next week. We've moved, like we mentioned, I'm going to say it again, we've moved the show time. It is now Sundays at 2200 Coordinated Universal Time. That would be Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And just join us live. Talk about this stuff, or leave your comments in the chat room. We'll talk about it in the next live show, or bring it up in one of our space pods, which we have brought back. Remember to hit up our live channel for the launches. Remember to follow us on Twitter so you can get updates as to when we're launching stuff, or anyone is launching stuff.
Right.
And yeah, we're slowly coming back online. Obviously, we're still trying to get back into the groove of things. We'll fix the background, we'll fix the audio, and I'll stop saying that phobos-grunt is going to install it. That's just crazy talk. So anything else you wanted to...
No, but I'm just glad that now you have a major blunder like that under your
Yeah, that
wing.
was a sad one, wasn't it?
I feel much better about that.
That was kind of sad. So, I don't know, SSME coffee table still up there, though.
It is. It is definitely up there. And I own that.
Unscripted live shows are hard. All right, on that note, we're gonna close out the official part of the show. Stay with us if you're joining us live. We'll continue with After Dark, which we may have to rename now because it's bright out still.
Yeah.
But we'll continue with After Dark. If you'd like to watch it on demand, think about becoming a SpaceVidcast Epic subscriber, and we'll see you next week.